Grayson
Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com in the premium section, has these stories. Road to signing day, recruiting threat. He has another one up. Recruiting notes. Baylor sends out 2 new 23 offers to offensive linemen. Another one, week of November 29th, recruiting threat. And then official visit, December 10th, 11th, and 12th, running recruiting thread, along with his weekly Bearcast with Craig Smoak on Tuesdays that covers everything Baylor. Grayson, Baylor's run to the Big 12 championship game, and I know most of their class is pretty much tied up, and we're closing in now a couple of weeks away from signing day. Do you feel like that they will get somebody they didn't expect in this run?
Maybe. I would say that I think the bigger, I'm not sure that they're going to get someone that's completely off the radar, completely out of nowhere that they're all of a sudden going to be in on. I think it's more so going to be a situation where, maybe a decommitment from another school. They're able to maybe swing one of those guys, or maybe if you kind of think about some of the other opportunities that they have, maybe they land a higher profile guy like a Neto Umeozulu, who they've been recruiting for a while, who's had a very quiet recruitment. So maybe something like that. But I don't think it's going to be too many names that are way off the radar that we just haven't heard about in, a year. I think it's going to be more so about the guys that they've focused on, the guys they've made priorities, and then guys that they built great relationships with, but maybe those guys decide to take a little bit longer in their recruitment, or, they chose somewhere else and maybe decided that wasn't the right place for them.
Do you think that the class of 2023 will get a bump from the fact that Baylor is even just playing in this game?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I think, we've talked, we talk every single week, and I've mentioned, multiple times that I think the 2023 class is expected to be the, one of those iconic Baylor classes. At least I believe so, where it's a potential top 20 class, which is not something Baylor has had many of. I posted in the Fro today that I actually think there's a chance this class sneaks into the top 25. And if it does, it would be the first class since 2014 to be inside the top 25 for Baylor. And that 2014 class finished 25th. So that just kind of tells you, the lack of massive recruiting classes that Baylor has had. But it seems like with Dave Aranda at the helm, it's starting to trend in that direction, similar to kind of what it was doing with Matt Rule as well, coming off of that 2019 season.
Grayson, there have been some staff departures, to Texas Tech, for example. Have you felt like that's played, any role in a change or a feel around the recruiting side of things, or is everything pretty much business as usual?
Yeah, it definitely changes some things. You lose one of the lead recruiters in James Blanchard. That's, you have to find a way to replace him. And then Joey McGuire was, as a position coach, great at recruiting. A guy that many high school coaches knew in the state of Texas. And obviously that gives you, some advantages as well. So, yeah, they've had to figure out ways to replace them. But I think the consistent thing that this Baylor staff has reiterated is it's a team effort in recruiting. It's not one guy. It's not, one person who builds every relationship. It's not one person who lands every recruit. It's very much a team atmosphere. And it's a team effort when they go after and land recruits because, the position coach plays a role. Dave Aranda plays a role in pretty much every commits recruitment. The recruiting guys, whether it's Aaron Hunt or Brian Nance or Vince Ginta, those guys all play a role as well. So when you have a team atmosphere like that, it makes it not as difficult to lose guys who are maybe influential in the recruiting aspect because you know that you can make it up in some other areas.
Yeah, they lost, obviously, some to Texas Tech. But Caleb Collins now, the new outside linebackers coach, and that it was immediate. They didn't announce it, and I guess it really until over the weekend. What have you heard about his possibilities of what he could be as a recruiter?
Yeah, I think he obviously has some experience because he was at LSU. So, he knows kind of the ins and outs of recruiting there. And then, of course, has been at Baylor for a couple of years now. And so he's learning it from that aspect as well. And honestly, he was a guy who, when I go through some of the recruiting, when I'm talking to kids, for instance, there are some guys who are kind of, they're not position coaches, but they get brought up occasionally. And Caleb was one of them, along with Joshua Atkinson, who works with the receivers for Baylor. Those are just two names where it's just kind of every once in a while I randomly get a response like, oh, yeah, I've heard from this coach, so-and-so, because most times it's one of the position coaches, but those guys in particular, have been mentioned by others. So I think Caleb is going to do a really nice job. I think it says a lot that Dave Aranda kind of immediately made that transition and has a lot of faith in him. I think he's going to do a fantastic job. And on the recruiting side of things, I mean, if you look at, that outside linebackers position, it's an area that, they have a lot of young guys at. And it's a group that's going to take a lot of development. And it's also a group that I think is going to be heavily focused on in the 2023 class. So I think we're really going to get a sense for, how well Caleb can do on the recruiting side as they try to continue to fill out that, jack position.
Grayson Grunhaver, Sikkim 365 Radio, recruiting analyst, also a co-host with the Bearcast with Craig Smoak every Tuesday.
So, Grayson, pretty big game tomorrow against Oklahoma State. Obviously, these two teams met a few weeks ago, and Oklahoma State dominated that game, in my opinion. Question mark at quarterback, Gary Bohannon, hobbled with the hamstring injury. Could be Blake Shapen for a second week in a row. What are you kind of looking at as far as this matchup goes? Where are your eyes, and what are your thoughts on Baylor's chances against the Pokes tomorrow?
Yeah, I think if you go back to that first matchup, I would say it's pretty fair to say that Oklahoma State dominated the first half. The first half of that game, they definitely dominated. They had 3 turnovers in the game, 2 in the first half, and gave Baylor great situations, and Baylor scored 0 points on those turnovers. And so that's going to be an area that Baylor has to address this week. They've got to find a way to cash in on what will most likely be at least 1 or 2 turnovers, maybe even 3 turnovers from Spencer Sanders. They have to cash in on those. And I think this Baylor defense getting to see an offense for the second time around, I think you've got to feel really good about the fact that Dave Aranda gets to see, this Oklahoma State offense again, because I have a feeling he's gonna be able to really dissect some of the things that they do. And my expectation really is that I think Baylor's defense has an opportunity to be the best unit on the field, and that may surprise some people because Oklahoma State's defense is terrific. It's very, very good, but I don't think Baylor's going to be throwing the ball all over the place or, trying to complete high-risk plays, whereas the Oklahoma State offense has a propensity to, throw the ball into coverage, to get sacked and turn the ball over. So I really think the Baylor defense has a chance to not only keep Baylor in the game, but potentially win Baylor the game with the kind of turnovers and high-impact plays that I feel like they can make. If Shapen is the quarterback, he's obviously going to be dealing with the best pass rush in the country. Oklahoma State leads the nation in sacks. So that's definitely a concern. But I do think it's one that Jeff Grimes and the staff will address this week. And I think the last thing that I got to mention is Baylor flat out has to run the ball better, and they got to win time of possession because of it. So if they can do those things, force those turnovers, limit sacks, run the football, control time of possession, I feel great about their chances to win this game, because all of those things they didn't quite do the first time around.
And you can't expect them to improve on all of them, but if they can take care of some of them, then obviously that helps. Grayson, from Diane on the text line, spicy fro this week. After Grayson referenced it, I had to go check it out, so I wanted to let you know that as well.
Okay. Awesome. Great to hear that.
Thank you, Grayson Grunhaver for Sikkim 365 Radio with us Fridays at 3:45. So here's some things about Oklahoma State and Baylor. And I guess I watched the game, and it was, you could tell Oklahoma State from the beginning was the best team, although on the road, they turned it over 3 times. No one can do that and still win a game, and they did it. After the 3 turnovers that happened twice inside Baylor's territory at the Baylor 20-7, and one time I think at the Cowboys 36, Baylor's offense ran 9 plays after the 3 turnovers and gained -6 yards.
Is that bad?
With 12:04 left in the game and Baylor had pulled to within 3, their 3 drives, their last 3 drives, 15 plays, 38 yards. And now they were driving, but 15 plays, 38 yards. Outrushed 219 to 107, which Grayson also mentioned as well. That is crazy good 3 turnovers, and you gain minus 6 yards on 3 consecutive 3-and-outs.
Yeah, and, he said, we were kind of splitting hairs. I said they dominated the game. He said they dominated the first half. Baylor had 2 drives that mattered in that game. So I feel like Oklahoma State still dominated the second half. They were still in control. So, again, it's just splitting hairs, but it was clear they dominated the game. I mean, just in general, they dominated that game. 3 turnovers, give up no points, still end up winning the game. As you said, multiple drives for Baylor. It went absolutely nowhere. They're going to have one hell of a game plan. I think tomorrow's going to come down to pure execution. I mean, which team executes better? Does Baylor – here's the thing is – we get so obsessed with energy and things like that, and there was definitely a lack of it last week for Baylor, and that was partially the flu bug and just the weather and just all that kind of stuff. But I think for them and based on what Aranda said this week, it is all about just being consistent, just being consistently excellent, and they were not at all consistent last week. They were very up and down. They play that way, they're going to get their ass kicked tomorrow, bottom line. But they have played much better, and I expect them to play much better and much sharper than they did last week. I expect them to be a little healthier, hopefully, as well. But, yeah, they're going to have to play mistake-free football, and they're going to have to make every field goal attempt, and they're going to have to come away with points when they're in the red zone. I mean, they're going to have to do the most basic of things, but that's how they're going to win this football game is just by being the most consistent team for all 4 quarters. That's how they win this football game, is being the most consistent team every single quarter. If they can do that, they can win. But if they play inconsistent like they have at times, then no, I don't like their chances at all.
I agree. I agree with you a lot of things. And it was hard for me to try to just look at this game. And I have no idea what it could end up being 30-10. And if a couple of things go wrong, but Oklahoma State, slight, just under a touchdown favorite. By the way, let's see here. Oregon got 4 turnovers from the Birds Word when I was talking about turnovers, had 4 turnovers and had no points versus Ohio State and still spanked. Oregon, did Oregon turn it over? Oh, I'm sorry. Oregon got 4 turnovers and had 0 versus Ohio State and still got spanked by the Buckeyes for the national title. It still hurts to this day.
Yeah,
okay.
I remember. That was Zeke Elliott's coming out party.
Yeah. All right. When we come back, we have to get to another guest.
I do want to give a
Joe will join
shout out real quick. I guess apparently I've got some family that's driving.